My name is Sherry Bonelli. I'm owner of Early Bird Digital Marketing here in lovely Cedar Rapids, Iowa. We are a full-service digital marketing agency specializing in search engine optimization. I'm a Google My Business Silver product expert, which means that I focus heavily on Google My Business, and I've
Awesome.
been doing it for 21 plus years.
Why should businesses focus on Google My Business specifically, and what kind of value can it bring to a business?
So if you own a local business, whether you actually have a physical storefront where customers come to you, or whether you are a service business where you may be working out of your home, like a pest control company or a landscaper, for instance, and you go out to your customers,
Mm.
claiming and optimizing your Google My Business listing is probably the number one way to get found on Google. And so it's really important that you claim your Google My Business listing, but not only claim it, make sure you optimize it and make sure that nobody is making any unwanted changes to your listing. And so a lot of people make the mistake of just claiming their listing and then forgetting about it. You want to
Mm.
make sure and update it by adding photos, maybe of work that you've done. Like, let's say you're a landscaper, you may want to take before and after photos of jobs that you've done. Or if you run a bakery, for instance, take pictures of the cupcakes that you make, for instance. Add a business description so customers know what your business is all about. Google My Business is really a robust way for people to do searches online and learn a lot about local businesses. So it's really important that if you own a local business, that you claim your listing.
Which is asking about what types of businesses should focus on Google My Business. So you mentioned some of them. Service can do it, brick and mortar, local business, but are there any other kind of categories that should be taking advantage of this?
Pretty much any local business should be claiming a Google My Business listing. There are certain businesses and categories that are not allowed to claim a listing.
Mm.
So, for instance, if you're an online only business, you cannot have a Google My Business listing. There are other certain categories that are kind of iffy. So, for instance, if you have a business inside of a business, in a lot of cases, you don't qualify to have a
Gotcha.
Google My Business listing. So, like, let's say, for instance, you have a business inside of a nail salon, for instance, and you sell maybe hair accessories,
Mm.
but you have a business, you wouldn't qualify to have a Google My Business listing because you're inside of another business.
Got you.
So there are certain quirky rules that sometimes prevent businesses from claiming listings. And so you'd want to make sure that you're adhering to the guidelines that Google specifies. So there are some rules, but basically any local business that meets with clients or has clients come to them, it for the most part can claim a Google My Business listing.
What are some strategies businesses can implement to drive more leads, customers, and even sales from Google My Business?
The best thing that you can do is make sure that you have all of your information filled out so that when people do a search online and they find you on Google My Business, they get as much information about your business upfront from that
Mm.
search result.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people, won't even click through to your website. Often they'll get enough information from your Google My Business profile, if it's filled out properly, that they can make a decision to call you, to visit you, to stop by your store, for instance, just from that listing alone. And so it's really important that you complete as much information, upload as many photos as you can. Google gives you a lot of ways that you can optimize and really make a really robust listing. Take advantage of every single one of those opportunities that Google's giving you. In light of what's going on with COVID-19, Google is aware that a lot of businesses now that we're running only storefront businesses, for instance, are now kind of having to do this weird hybrid between I'm sort of open, but
Mm.
still have to do a lot of things online. So they are making different features available now. So for instance, if you're an attorney, you can now put an attribute up that says that you're accepting online appointments,
Mm.
which is great. So like if you're meeting with clients over Zoom, for instance, you can put that attribute up there so that customers and clients know that they don't have to come to your office, that the business is willing to meet with you online so that you don't have to like physically leave your home to meet with people. So Google's kind of being a little bit nimble and very helpful to local businesses and starting to make changes that they probably wouldn't have otherwise made.
Are there any challenges to optimize your Google My Business profile? And do you have any tools and resources that can help with that?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is anybody can make any changes to your listing virtually at any time. And that's kind of a scary thing. And a lot
Yeah.
of business owners don't like that, understandably so. I mean, who wants somebody to change their website URL, for instance? I mean,
Right.
it kind of seems unfair. But Google really is all about community and user generated content, for instance. And so there are a lot of businesses that don't keep up with updating their information. So, for instance, if a business's hours have changed and that business owner isn't making those changes and people notice that the hours are incorrect, they can go in and suggest changes to those business hours, for instance. And so Google relies on those suggested edits. Sometimes those edits are made immediately. Sometimes they're made, within a week or two. Sometimes they're not accepted. And so that's kind of a challenge for business owners, and they need to pay attention to their Google My Business listing by logging in and making sure that no changes were unnecessarily made that are incorrect. The other challenge is sometimes your listing can get suspended, and it's either because you're violating something, you're not adhering to Google guidelines. Often that is because, you're a service area business and you have a physical address listed, and that's
Mm.
against guidelines. So those are, I think, the two biggest challenges is making sure that you're, keeping an eye on your listing to make sure everything's still correct. And then if you get suspended, that can be a really challenge to try and figure out what you might have been doing wrong. As far as tools go, there are some tools that will say they can connect and maybe even auto post, make posts to your Google My
Mm.
Business listing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always leery about letting a third-party tool have access to my listing. Some third-party tools, some even review tools, for instance, can cause even suspensions to happen. And that's been known to happen
Mm.
in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't like to connect third-party tools to any of my clients' Google My Business listings. It's kind of a preference that people have, and you can do it. I generally don't recommend it, but that's just my personal preference.
Absolutely. And I just want to add, as far as resources, Sherry now has 2 insider trainings in the lab platform about Google My Business. So if you're looking to get hands-on deep in there, you can use Sherry as a resource. She's a really good one.
Thanks.
What are the biggest mistakes you see businesses making with their Google My Business profile, and how can they kind of take steps to start correcting those?
Yeah, I would say the biggest mistake is probably not uploading enough photos. Photos
Mm.
have been shown to help engagement and can lead to clicks and calls and visits to your store. Those are studies that have been done by Google. So Google is actually the one saying that those types of things can cause engagement and actually drive traffic to your place of business. So uploading photos is a really important thing. I would say the other thing is making sure that all of your information is correct and updated. And then I think the other third thing is to make sure that you're engaging with your customers. So, for instance, if you have the messaging app set up, make sure you're responding to those messages within at least 24 hours because Google watches those things and keeps track and actually recommends that you respond within, like, I think an hour or two
Mm.
from the
Mm-hmm.
time you receive a message, from the time you respond. So timeliness is really, really important when it comes to Google My Business listings. They want to make sure that the business is picking up the phone when people call, responding to messages when people are messaging them and asking questions and those types of things.
What is on the horizon for Google My Business? Is there anything new or upcoming that you know about? I know it does change pretty frequently. They're
It does.
constantly making
Yeah.
updates, but any predictions that you have for it?
What I predict is that there's going to be more changes due to COVID-19. I
Mm-hmm.
think that they are releasing new, what we call attributes, which are basically um, new enhancements that provide customers with more information about what your business offers. And one example, like I said, was the one for attorneys or other businesses that may have online appointments available.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are more attributes that are going to be coming out depending on your category. So be on the lookout for those. Like, for instance, I recently updated one for one of my auto repair places, and they had a slew of new attributes available. Like, do you have 24-hour security? Do you
Mm.
have, Dropbox available? Do you have cameras, you have a secure lot. Those attributes were all relatively new that weren't available to us before. And so check to see, go into your info section, and then you'll see a place where you can add and check the attributes, see if there are any new ones, and if they apply to you, add them, because sometimes those will be prominently displayed in your knowledge panel, which is on the right hand side if you do a search for your business name. And those will let customers know more information about whether or not your business and whatever situation you're in right now best fits what they're looking for. So I
Got you.
think that Google is going to be more nimble and a little bit more flexible than they were in the past with regard to kind of a hybrid model. I don't think they're going to ever get to the point where online only businesses are going to be allowed to claim Google My Business listing. So don't get me wrong about that.
Mhm.
But I think they are understanding that in this crazy world we're living in at this moment, that they do know that businesses do have to kind of be flexible in how they're operating their business, and that not everything can be done in their place of business, and that they have to maybe do more things online, and they're making that much more easier for businesses. And I can see that there's going to be more changes on the horizon with regard to that.
That's amazing. And I think it's going to help a lot of people as we're still kind of getting back into the swing of some things. Now, I can't say
Yes.
back to normal, but
No. I don't think it's ever going to be back to normal, unfortunately.
well, thank you so much, Sherry. I super appreciate your time. As a reminder, it is Optimize Your Google My Business and Google My Business AMA, which are both in the lab platform under Insider Training. But if people are looking to reach out to you, where can they find you? Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all
Yeah,
that.
the best way is through I would say Twitter, and
Okay.
that my handle is Sherry Bonelli. And then LinkedIn is another great way to reach me. I'm not on Instagram as much as I probably should be, but LinkedIn and Twitter is definitely the place to find me.
Awesome.